Good morning. What is great, good, and real? And welcome to day 19 of the Do You Rules live stream experience where I talk your ear off. Oh, and I get into the undercover dirty details of the cliche Jeff and the Do You Rules self improvement experience. Day 19 is pretty cool. Day 19, believe it or not, things start to feel a little more natural. And because of that, they get a little bit harder. Let's do a quick check of standard things to make sure we're good. I got my chapstick, which I feel like I need some already. I got my water, and I guess a new edition that began yesterday. Got my notes, some things to talk about today. I feel a little tight and congested in my space. I didn't do a good job of cleaning up. I don't keep everything immaculately clean, but I do get a little OCD ish about my immediate space. So I can sense and detect when something new is in my recording area. I share it with my son. My son likes to game down here. And sensing something, feeling something has a little bit of an effect on your mind, body, and your soul. You know, your rhythms and your patterns, and getting all into the flow of things. All the standard stuff we talk about on the Do You Rules. So where we at? Where are you at in your life? How often do you ask yourself how you doing? And then when you do ask yourself that question, how honest are you with your answers? How transparent are you? That's part of my core values of life and how I sort of operate. What level of transparency do you have, respectively? It's important in all relationships. We're going to talk a little bit about relationships today. I should have also got into what I believe we're going to talk about. Albeit, if you've been with me for these last 19 days, you know that I can just veer off and talk for about 3 hours about something I didn't intend to talk about. But since it's Sunday and we're starting our week, we want to talk about planning ahead. I want to get into possibly disruptions and distractions. I do want to revisit visualizing because I think it's important. And it ties into planning ahead, preparing for disruptions and distractions. And this week is going to be disruptive and distracting for me for many reasons, which I'll get into shortly. And I put a note down here of staying focused, staying focused. So, planning ahead. If you were with me yesterday, or you've been with me now for the last few Saturdays, or I think this is about the third weekend, might even be the fourth weekend because of the way I don't think it's the fourth, either way. We close out our week on Saturdays and we start our week on Sundays. And a lot of what I said yesterday, well, not a lot of what I said, but I certainly touched on it. If I could repeat last week again this week, I feel very good about my week. It was a good week. I did what I said I would do. I was where I said I would be, and I executed on my tasks respectfully. It's not to say it was perfect. Not to say again we talked about some takebacks in and around and with respect to my takebacks. I talked about some of the frustration I felt with my relational experience, with my most intimate relational experience. I had a high intensity and focus around having a great day with my family yesterday, and it worked out phenomenally. I talked about for about 2 hours straight with my wife about some very, very, very touchy subjects, some experiences I went through recently, as far as maybe some areas in my life I needed closure on that I didn't realize I needed closure on, or that resurfaced because I was in my head talking about things and it popped up. I was I'm going to get into, excuse me, I think I'm going to script out an episode about what I believe is my greatest fear in life, which is not being fully independent. And that means a lot of things. It's not just, a financial independence or I'm at a certain age and I want to be independent. It's independent where I don't want to ever rely on anyone for anything. And the reality to why I don't want to ever rely on anyone for anything is because I know what it feels like to have to rely on someone or rely on things, make a request from someone, become very, I guess the term would be vulnerable and be told no. That's a horrible feeling. And so I never want to be in that area and in that space. And self improvement, a lot of the journey that I believe is important for us is to find that independence in all areas of our life. I get that, things pop up and there's only but so much maybe that's gonna happen for us financially. So there's that. I do feel strongly that if you're limited financially, then you gotta expand your skills. I just do. I've been limited enough financially to say that my wife said it yesterday, the likelihood of me achieving what I've been able to achieve respectfully in my career, not that it's been the greatest, but we're very slim. We're very slim. Statistically, because of where I come from, the likelihood of me getting too far out of quote unquote the hood, right, was really small. And that I've been able to reach where I'm at is pretty dope. And it gives me a lot of financial independence. That's great. There's also the emotional independence and spiritual independence and all the things that come with being able to implement a disciplined, focused routine of love for yourself. And if you're reliant on anything or anyone, then it strips you of your freedom. Right? When you depend and rely on things outside of yourself, then it makes life difficult in that way because you're by definition restricted and limited, and any sort of restrictions and limitations, it's gonna fuck with you. There's no way it can't. There's no way it can't. It's like with all this abundance and availability of life, to be restricted and not be independent in any way, that is definitely my greatest fear. How I got there, I think a conversation for another day. But let's talk about planning ahead. So if this week goes like last week, I would have a great week. But the reality is, it's not going to go like last week for a multitude of reasons. This is a big week for me in a lot of ways that has nothing to do with the control over me, what I do, and how I'm able to sort of navigate through the storm of life, the specific routine of, all right, I'm on this self improvement journey. I go through my routine, my rhythms, my patterns, my habits. As I look ahead and project out for this week, if I want to repeat last week, generally speaking, I have to look at the conditions that are around me, right? We talked about going through seasons, and there's a reality to, when it comes down to, let's say, the winter and you want to go outside and go for your run, very different experience than the fall, excuse me, or the spring or the summer. Yeah. You go outside and your hands start to freeze and your face starts to freeze and your toes start to freeze and maybe it's wet and all those things have an impact on performance and performance, not just physically but also, of course, mentally and emotionally and spiritually. So what are going to be the conditions for this week? Well, I do have birthdays coming up for my children, and my wife and I somehow were able to have my children's birthday line up one day after the other. So my daughter turns 15 one day, and the very next day my son will turn 12. So that right there, A lot of planning has to go into that. A lot of focus, attention, and diligence, and rightfully so. But also with that, we're gonna have some family come over. They're gonna fly over from another place in the world, and that is now another layer of complexity in and around the energy space, the force field, the environment, and that is a disruption and a distraction. And I understand how that might sound, but the basic language and reality to disruptive forces and disruptive circumstances come with very positive intent. Birthdays are beautiful. Life and growing is beautiful. Without them, there's. I mean, think about it. That's just. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. There's not even any reason to go deeper into that than the truth and reality of the obvious. But also, planning for these things are disruptive to your self improvement journey workflow. It creates risk to your schedule, to your routine. So being able to understand, appreciate, and plan ahead for that is huge and shouldn't be overlooked or sort of, what's the right word, man? You shouldn't be dismissive of that. You shouldn't be dismissive of that. Part of what I believe the emotional, and I believe this is all a very emotional experience. You want to be protective of yourself. You want to be somewhat guarded with your energy, with your emotions. Because again, any sort of change to the flow puts you at risk also emotionally. And when things start to put you at risk emotionally, then the relationships that you have that mean the most could be violated. Yeah, work with me here, right? Work with me. I'm driving towards something that's very important. And so, in that way, birthdays are not about me, but I have a massive role in the birthdays. I'm the father of two children who are growing. I got to be able to be present in a way where I execute. Like, all right, what is the reason and the rationale and the logic to go through a self improvement evolution and journey and process if it's just about you? It can't be just about you. It's not just about you, but you got to make sure you're secure and that you're protected so that you, as much as you care about you, don't wind up having to go and pray and meditate later on in the week after this all happens. Then forgive me, God, for all I have done. I ruined the birthday week. You don't want that. You don't want that. And so you have to, not you have to, I like to, as I'm planning ahead for the week, if I'm looking to make repeatable process, I say it's going to be awfully difficult for me to repeat this week or last week, which is cool because we got to be able to brace ourselves and be flexible and fluid enough to overcome these obstacles. These are obstacles. These are real life, true obstacles. It's all right. I got to be there for birthdays. I have someone coming to fly in. Now the person, and it's not like it's 46 people flying in. It's just one person. But one person is enough. One person is a different personality, a different identity, a different set of expectations. You want to be welcoming, you want to serve this person, you want to ensure that you're accommodating, but in the way that you're accommodating, you don't want to compromise at the same time. So where's that balance? Where's the balance of not being selfish, being selfless? Where's the balance of extending and opening and being welcoming without it compromising the energy of the house? That's a big, I think it's worth talking about in a little bit of detail, right? I don't believe in just, so if self improvement is you're working on your home is your internal essence and being, right? Who you are, your soul, and everything that's on the inside of you. You protect it. I protect my house. I protect it from energy vampires. I protect it from people who are complaining and gossiping and who have all the intentions that don't align with my intentions. I'm not calling it right, wrong, or indifferent. I'm not telling you you're wrong or you're bad or you're a terrible human. I'm saying that I have a level of discipline in this area. You have a level of discipline in this area. And if they conflict, I don't want you in my area because you put me at risk of having my energy bubble infected. That's all. I keep who I am and how I do and how I move and how I feel. I'm very guarded with that because it's very fragile. It's sensitive. I'm a sensitive dude. And I mean that in a way that is as real as I can be. I don't do all this work to fail at any level. And I take everything I do very seriously. So my responsibilities for the week and ensuring that I'm available and present and that I execute at a high level and that I don't ruin things for my children to give them an experience that could be traumatic. You do something, you pop off in the wrong way, it gets real with family. It gets real with family sometimes because there's that level of intimacy and all those things that go in. So I got to protect that. So in that way, when you're trying to be selfless, I do believe there's certain things I can't compromise. I still got to wake up at my time. I still got to put in the energy and effort into my mind, my body, and my spirit, into my side endeavors, which are which is this what I'm doing right now. I still got a script. I still have to work. I can't take off from work, although I'm off Monday. And, and so you question, there's going to be a disruption. Excuse me, Jesus, that was nasty. There's going to be a disruption to my life. There's going to be another being in my space. That person requires a lot of energy and a lot of focus and a lot of attention. How do I meet that requirement in a way that ensures that person's comfortable? And I know you might think that we look into this a little bit too deep. I don't. I would argue we don't look into this deeply enough. I think we have all the right intentions of come over or let me go over, but there's a realness and a seriousness to how I believe in managing relationships, because again, and particularly when my children are involved, I'm very cognizant and cautious to who they're exposed to and the level of mindset they have, because whatever you say has an impact and can be disruptive and distracting and affect the person that you're interacting with, particularly when your emotional levels are in teenage space, or you think, man, I'm just, how do I say it in a way that's respectful? I don't know that no one should think like me. I'm not saying that, but I know that very few people are in the same wavelength and space I'm in. I don't know that a lot of people give as much thought as I do. And is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? I don't know, but it helps me keep things successful in my relationships. If I don't think this way, if I'm not constantly analyzed, if I'm not constantly anticipating and preparing for what could happen, then I consider myself unprepared. And I gotta prepare for any situation that involves my family because I gotta be protective of my home. So when I open my home, my inner home, my physical home, to where all my, what I built, which is my legacy. My wife and I talked about that in detail yesterday. What is generational wealth? Generational wealth is me handing off a specific mindset to my family, to my children, that says, this is, if you want to go do something, whatever it is, pick a field, any field, pick a space, any space, manifest whatever you want. This is how you got to flow and operate. So when I allow other people in that space, you become a disruption and a distraction to how things go. It can have a massive impact. You could say something like, listen, man, you say things that could have. I was talking about man. I said this yesterday. I recalled a conversation I had with somebody when I was 9 years old, and my wife said, "Look at that. Clearly, this was meaningful to you because to remember it in this way." Let me be conscious of time. Set a 5-minute timer. Nope. Set a timer for 5 a.m. Let me kill this other timer. Okay. Yes. Words have an impact, and experiences, man, you know, are big. So I'm cognizant when people come in, anybody, I don't care who you are. I don't give a fuck who you are. It comes down to, this is my home, is my domain, it's my house, my rules. That's just the way it is. It's not to say again that I'm not accommodating. It's not to say that I'm not respectful, but in a way that it should be reciprocal. You're not just gonna come, and I'm not suggesting that what's about to occur is has the potential to be egregious in any way. I'm just saying that because of how we operate here in the cliche Jeff home, anything that is added, anyone that is added, is a disruption and a distraction. It could even be in a happy, like when you come in and you want to party and have a good time, that's good intention, but it's a distraction and a disruption to what keeps the family balanced every day. And so we have to, my wife and I have to navigate and question, to what extent do we want to party? To what extent do we want to indulge? To what extent do we want to break our routines and our rhythms and our patterns? We might have a high tolerance to do so. We might have a low tolerance to do so. Either way, we're aligned on it got to be this way because we can't compromise the rhythm, the pattern, and the flow. Everything has to be successful in the way it has to be successful. So in that way, we talk about planning ahead, anticipating disruptions and distractions are important. And I also, it goes back to sort of into visualization. I do I do try to visualize how this week might go. And when I can anticipate that there's going to be a certain disruption or distraction, I can prepare for it. All right, if this pops off this way, if it pops off this way, if we do this, if we do that, if whatever the case might be, preparing myself emotionally, that's a lot of what it is too, right? You got to prepare yourself for the emotional experience because again, you want to have a positive, conducive experience. Why wouldn't you? So in that way, you visualize and you prepare. I wanted to get into also distractions in general. Some are predictable. Okay, this person's flying in. Okay, it's a birthday. Okay, where I'm at professionally, I got a few things I got to close out this week. Then there's the reality to think about how tangential I kind of sort of went. And even if as I try to reflect in the moment, I'm looking forward to watching this back. That my thoughts are and my messages, I feel like it's concise in a way, but it's also very sporadic in that it's directionally directionless. You get what I'm trying to say? And it's because as I'm preparing myself for this week, which is going to be a heavy week, it does become a mental distraction. So in that way, a lot of the distractions that are in front of us, especially with a technology driven world, I haven't, I've been sort of hesitant to get into phone usage, social media scrolling, TV watching, all those things. But distractions overall towards the self improvement journey are very real in that when you start to align your thoughts and your consciousness, what you input is super important to how you have to what you output, right? If you're constantly indulging in the Netflix experience, I talked about being sedentary yesterday, and a lot of man, that concept of being sedentary is scary to me. But there's an ease to which we live today, and I indulge in a lot of it. For example, I might have talked about it before. I certainly enjoy the Instacart experience, but that means I no longer go out to go to Costco. So, which means I'm not interacting, I'm not walking, I'm not moving. Imagine if you're a remote worker, you're sitting at your, or even if you go to work, you take the bus, you drive, you take an elevator, you sit at your desk, you leave, you again, you're not really moving. That is also you can still be productive in a way and still be sedentary. Not really good for the body. I believe not really good for your mindset and your thoughts, consciousness, and your overall experience in life. In that way, what you expose yourself to and how you allow yourself to be distracted or what you allow yourself to be occupied by can be a massive distraction. And I find that the significance is this. I talked about how I can't stop thinking about what I think about. So in that way, I'm distracted by my thoughts. I'm distracted by my live streams. I'm distracted by my content. I'm distracted by my scripting. And what I was distracted by before was a lot of sports, a lot of entertainment, a lot of social media, a lot of discords. Chat. Oh, my light's about to fall on the side. I just got distracted. the the types of distractions you subscribe to are going to dictate your level of productivity in life. It just is. So if you're constantly distracted by the phone and you're constantly distracted by the television and you're constantly distracted by binge watching and you're constantly distracted by Uber Eats and having everything delivered to you, then you run the risk of being very sedentary also from an emotional and a psychological perspective. You just do. I got to fix this light. It's driving me crazy. Hold on one second. This is going to require a lot more work. One of the things that I want to invest in is a new desk because of the way I use a lot of Elgato equipment, but the way that it kind of ties in at the bottom, this desk is not conducive to the style of bolting that this light does. In any event, now I feel very distracted. The distraction towards overindulgent, and sedentary style, sedentary lifestyles. If you could ever stop and process what goes on in your, we talk about the thoughts that you think. What are you thinking? I don't know that the self improvement space and a healthy lifestyle around mindset and energy and flow is available to you because you start to constantly drift towards your distractions. And when you're drifting towards your distractions essentially become your lifestyle and really they limit you. They just do. But the reality is also we have to be distracted by something. And in that way, I just again just I'm losing train of thought here and focus and I'll be honest, part of the journey, losing a little bit of the desire to want to even keep talking. But we'll push through it. we'll push through it because I said I'll stay there at least 5 o'clock. And even if I just end this in 5 minutes of silence, which is there's a practice by the Navy SEALs I'll get into in a second. I would encourage you to appreciate what you're being distracted by, what you're allowing to infiltrate your space and your mind. Because as I continue to say, you'll just crave that, whether you're conscious of it or not. And that is just what's going to get you through your day. And I don't know that that's the healthiest for your emotional experience in life, right? That's that. All right. Let me see if there's any more notes I had. It's funny that I wrote down staying focused, and I'm finding it hard today to stay focused. I talked about planning ahead, disruptions and distractions. I'll say visualizing because I'm maybe we'll talk a little bit about visualizing. One of the things I said about this 5 minute that I'll share with you. There's I think it's a Navy SEAL technique or a practice. You want to talk about enhancing your focus, where they'll tell you to lie in a position. And once you lie in your position and you get comfortable, set a timer or set a timer for 5 minutes and then don't move. Don't move at all. And you might be thinking that that's real easy. I promise you, 20 to 30 seconds in, I'm talking about don't fidget, no fidgeting, no twinkling your fingers, wiggling your toes. Don't move. Just breathe. Try that. That is a way to promote focus. That is a way to appreciate distractions and how they work and see how your mind jumps. And if you could think about what that would do to you, the idea that most of us can't just be still in the same position for 5 minutes, and that this will be a tactic employed by the employed, utilized by the Navy SEALs, it's probably worth trying. It's probably worth trying. All right, I'm not going to get into visualization. I'm going to sort of let this time go and encourage you all, if you've made it this far, to consider what is ahead for you this week. Consider what you have to do. Consider what might be in your way that might cause disruptions and distractions. Be honest about it, accept it, and then find a way to navigate it and navigate it healthily and in a way that makes you feel good about life. I don't know what else to offer you. I'll sit here for these last minute and 45 seconds. Think if anything strikes me that is worth saying. Check the chat, see if anybody's joining. And what I'll also do is, for the sake of making the last 90 seconds at least valuable to me, if I can't make it valuable to me, then who can I make it valuable to? Is the I spent another. I got a lot of zeros. It's hard sometimes on a Saturday. I'll tell you, to the weekends, there's more possibility for distractions because people need things on the weekend and you got to be there, right? Check it out. Where I'm at. I didn't lift yesterday, man. I wanted to. I really did. I also was. I sort of thought about this 3 days on, 2 days off thing. I did it here, 3 days on, 2 days off. I had 2 days before I rested, 3 days. But I really want to lift today. I want to let out some aggression and some animal instinct that's in me. But here I am, man. 94 hours in. 94 hours in. That feels good to know that my target for the month is roughly 100. 100 and it was 15, 12, 12. 5 times is 60. So 104. 104 and maybe a few minutes to get the 1250 pace. But here I am on day 19. I'm certainly going to put it as my timer. I'm certainly going to put in, I've already put in 20 minutes of meditation today. I'm probably not going to meditate in a focused way again. I put in at least 30 minutes of content creation. I got on about 4:25, so I've been on for 35 minutes. There's that. I do have a script I'm writing, which I'm very excited about. I'll pull that up here. Got to Camera Hub. This is a great tool, man. This is a great tool. This Camera Hub thing. Look at my script, right? I'm going to talk about avoiding these types of people. Show me your friends, I'll show you your future. I've been working on this for a couple of days, for a few hours, and I'm looking forward to closing this out. And I might record the session today. So that's what my Sunday will look like. I don't think I'm gonna go outside and run. I might do some rope. It is 33 degrees by me. 33 degrees. I feel like I need outside. Maybe I'll go for a walk. Let me see if my wife wants to go for a walk. But what could you do on a Sunday? I could rant on here for 35 minutes. I could go back to sleep. Sometimes, man, I get the urge. Sometimes, I say to myself, 90 minutes into my day, it's still only 5 o'clock. I could go back into my bed to 7 and I will feel very good. One of the things I also like to do is yesterday, I think my wife got down at 7:30. No, 8:30, because she asked me if I can give her that hour. She didn't want me to stay down here till 9:30, to which I obliged happily. And I say to myself, I went outside with her. I think I went outside with her to walk the dog, and I see some other people walking the dog. And folks just look like they haven't had their coffee yet. And I'm like, yo, I'm 5 hours into my day. That's dope. It's a great feeling to know it's 8:30, 9:30. I got 5, 6 hours into my day already. Have I been productive? I think so. I think if I feel productive, I'm productive. I think if you feel productive, you're productive. And if productive for you is sleeping into 9:30, that's cool. You might look at me and say, well, you're in bed by 9 o'clock, 9:30, and you're so efficient until 11 o'clock midnight. That's cool. Well, whatever's distracting you and keeping you occupied. That works. That works. But I like this idea. I like this concept. And it's a pretty dope thing. I'm approaching 38 minutes here on the live stream. I'll say that to start the week, when you have a week that could potentially be filled with distractions and disruptions, getting off to a good start, we talk about planning ahead. I'll leave you with my closing thoughts around that. If you can get ahead of it, like anything else, you get ahead, you sort of stay ahead. If you plan for as much as you could plan for, then you become more successful for the unplanned. If you make things very predictable, then you're more apt to be able to respond to the unpredictable, because we talk about regularly controllables and the things you can't control. And that is the biggest thing for me to start the week. I'll leave you with that 'cause I think it's important. And I'll take 60 seconds here, if not a little bit more, because I want to have 40 minutes. I think sometimes I get anal like that. I want to have 38 minutes, 39 minutes, or 60 more seconds. To be able to start your week and plan ahead is to put yourself in a way where you're able to respond to your life, not react to your life. And you'll find that if you remain distracted and you allow disruptions to impact you adversely, then I'd argue you're in a reactive state to your life, not a responsive state. And the difference between the two shouldn't be arbitrarily dismissed or overlooked and dismissed as if it's minuscule, because it isn't. The people who are able to respond to their life are better prepared for what they can't what is they're unable to expect, the unexpected, the difficulties, and the trials and tribulations. If you're in a reactive state constantly, that's a high intensity, high stress mindset that you'll find yourself very uncomfortable with. React versus respond. We crossed the 40-minute mark. I feel blessed. I hope I gave, even if it was just a small nugget, something for you all to think about. As always, focus on you, do you, change your mind, change your life. I am who I say I am. Do you and stay rich.